Good morning, Facebook. Let me see if I can find a filter that makes me not look so dead. Hold on. I don't know how to work this. Filter. That's a little better. Okay. Let's set it right there. Okay. So I know it's early, and I apologize for being that person that is blowing up your newsfeed first thing in the morning, but I was listening to a message by Lisa Turkers, and it was just way too good not to share. Like ugly crying at 6:30 in the morning, kind of good. It's very nice here this morning. I'm actually enjoying my coffee while it's like 55 degrees and there's thunderstorms, and it's awesome. It's a God-breathed morning. For those of you that have that like old person soul where you like to sit outside and it's cold and have your coffee, I'm very much that person. Texas heat is not a good time to have coffee in the morning. It's just not. You have to sit in the air conditioner where it's like 65 and you're still sweating while you're drinking it. Well, that's not this morning. So this morning, I was listening to this message by Lisa Turkers, and I'm going to try to talk kind of softly so I don't wake my kids up because I really want to get through this. And she was talking about the three gardens. She was going over the story of the Garden of Eden, starting in chapter 1 of Genesis, and talking about how God had created this garden. And in the middle of the garden, when he created Adam, he told Adam, there is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Don't eat from that tree. Well, then Adam had a helpmate created, which we know as Eve, and Eve was persuaded by the serpent to eat of that tree and then shared it with her husband. So immediately they knew about sin, and sin had come over them. And so the greatest part about this story thus far was the fact that even though they had done wrong and they had done exactly what God told them not to do, he still helped them. He made clothes for them out of animal skins and made sure that they had the resources that they needed. But he also did them a favor by kicking them out of the garden and making sure that they couldn't get back in, because he knew if they got to the tree of life that they would live perpetually forever in that sin. So then at the end of the Bible in Revelations, it talks about the Garden of Eden. What did she say it was called? Oh, Garden of Eden restored. So, when Jesus comes back and we're all with him, the Garden of Eden will be restored. Haven't gotten to that point in the Bible, but I'm going to definitely do some research. I've always been one of those people that's really afraid of the end of the Bible because there's just a lot of stuff in there. But then she talks about the third garden, the garden in between the Garden of Eden and the Garden of Eden restored, which was the Garden of Gethsemane, which we know is the place where Jesus went to pray before he was crucified. And she was talking about in that, in Mark 14, 34 through 36, she was talking about the fact that Jesus went to the Garden of Gethsemane and he, told his disciples, wait here, I need to go pray. My heart is so heavy. Well, I'll just read it from the Bible. He said, my soul is crushed with grief to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. And when she said that, I don't know, something about this message was just different. But she was like, have you ever been at that point in life where you have some good somethings and then you just have this season of just really, really hard times? She's like, and you have that thing that happens and you get that. Your heart just gets that. And it's like, there's so much going on that it's just so heavy on me. My soul is crushed to the point of death. Because at this point in Jesus' life, he's never dealt with sin. But then all of a sudden, he's about to take on sin for all of humanity. He's about to take that upon himself. And can you just imagine what that feels like? I mean, walking around with the things that we do every day and the life that we experience, can you imagine experiencing that for all of humanity and how that weighed on him? I can't because just dealing with my life is enough. Let's see. He went on a little farther and fell to the ground and prayed that if it were possible, that the awful hour awaiting him might pass him by. Father, he cried out, everything is possible for you. Please take this cup of suffering away from me. And so he called out to God, and he was like, I don't want to do this. This is too much for me. This is too much for me. And what she talked about was when the garden was created, God was there. Jesus was there. He saw all of it, all of this going down. He knew what was going to happen before it did. And that's still confusing for me as much as it is for probably a lot of people. There's so much about the Bible that confuses me, but he was there and he knew that. And the thing about the Garden of Gethsemane, not that I've experienced it personally, but just from what I've heard, is that it is full of olive trees. And she was talking about the olive tree and what's so significant about the olive tree is the fact that just like how it works. So olive trees cannot produce fruit unless the harsh winds of the east and then the refreshing winds of the west happen together. The actual olives cannot be grown. And what she was saying was, you have the harsh winds of the east in your life, those winds that are so hot and so hard and so suffocating, you just cannot breathe when they're blowing on you. She's like, that's like a lot of the things that we deal with in our own life. They're just so hard and harsh, and it's almost like you're suffocating under that. And then you have the refreshing winds of the west that come from the Mediterranean seas that blow on you, and it's just this soft, cool breeze. And exactly what, hold on, it's so dark in here. There we go. And it's just exactly what you need at the right time. It's like those seasons of life that you walk through, and it's just, you have the really, really hard times, and then you feel like you have this season of refreshment that your soul is just like, I can breathe again. Symbols of our life that we must have the good times and the bads, and the bad. Truth number 2, once it produces fruits, it's hard and bitter and you couldn't just eat it. So the olives that we get here in the store are not the same olives that you get from an actual olive tree. It must be cracked and then salted and soaked and salted and soaked and salted and soaked, because it's hard to get rid of the hardness and the bitterness. And something about this just resonated with me so strongly, because I feel like sometimes my life is very much in that second stage of harvest of the olives, where it's got to be cracked a little bit. You got to be cracked a little bit, and then you're salted and you're soaked. You feel like things are getting better, and then you're salted again, and there's just salt in that wound, and then you're soaked, and it's like a little bit of rebereavement, and then you're salted again, and then you're soaked, and it's like, is this ever going to end? Then truth number 3, what is most valuable about the olive tree is not the olive, but the oil. It must be pressed. The first pressing is the oil that they used to use for anointing. It's called the holy oil. And the second is for food. So the olive oil that we get, that we would use to use for our food. And then the third is after all of the other tries from the deepest pressing of the oil, it's turned into light. It's turned into fuel for light. And the same is true for us. So after you've gone through those initial pressings and you're squeezing every bit of life out of what is left, and you just feel so depleted, that oil comes from the third pressing. And so the title of this little video is called, Do You Remember? Do you remember when you were at that place in life, and maybe you haven't been here yet, but I remember vividly when I was saved. I was 13, and I was at a church camp in Clayton, Oklahoma, Camp Minnetonka. It's been years. And I remember we were all sitting there. It had been a crazy week. It was hot, Oklahoma, and the wind was blowing hot air. And, you know, you're surrounded in the middle of, like, we were in the middle of nowhere, red dirt, ugly trees, like Oklahoma. So we were sitting there, and we had a really powerful preaching, and there was worship going on, and they had given the invitation, and they said, does anyone at this point feel like they're ready to accept, the Lord's love and just be washed over by that? And I'm from the South, so back in the day, it was like anytime they gave an invitation at church, you were saved. I honestly thought that for so long because I didn't really understand it, and I didn't understand what it meant to be saved. So I felt like every Sunday I was saved, and I had been baptized, but I didn't really understand what all of that meant. I was just kind of going through the motions because I thought that's what was supposed to happen. I thought that's what I was supposed to do, and no, there are good parts, Logan. There are good parts of Oklahoma. But I didn't really grasp the concept of being saved. I had no idea what that truly meant until this weekend. And I finally started to get it because the leaders that I was with really explained it and really showed me what that meant to be saved. And so I'll never forget it. Miss Judy, what is your last name, Judy? I don't know, for some reason I can't remember it. Joodles, we call her Joodles. We've gone to church with her forever. And I remember grabbing her hand and I said, I want to pray that sinner's prayer. I want to be saved. And she was like, okay. So she sat with me on the grass and we talked about it. And I told her, I was like, I just feel like this is something. And I remember telling her that night, I was like, I feel like the Lord is calling me to do more. I feel like I'm saved, but I also feel like that I'm going to be in a life of ministry. Okay, so imagine at 13 feeling that immense pressure that your life is going to be this big thing and, ministry and all that. And I, at the time, thought that meant I was going to marry a pastor. Y'all, my husband's not a pastor. He loves the Lord, but he is definitely not a pastor. Hold on, I'm gonna grab baby. Mom life. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, he's a happy girl. Oh, goodness. Say good morning. Okay, so, anyway, I remember thinking, I'm going to be married to a preacher, and that's how I'm going to serve the Lord, because that is at the time what I thought serving the Lord meant. There weren't a lot of women in our church, or that I'd seen, serving as a big part of ministry. But that was before I knew the behind the scenes of ministry and what really goes on and what the women of the church do. So my 13-year-old self going to school, and I've told anyone that will ask me, I've known, and my mom knows this, for a long time, I have felt that calling on my life, that I just thought I was so weird because I walked around with worship songs in my head constantly, but I didn't want to be weird. You're 13. You want to fit in. You want to do what everyone else is doing. And you don't want to feel this immense calling or pressure on your life. You just want to be normal. And I just told myself after that, after the church camp high had worn off, I was like, I just want to be normal. I don't want to feel weird. I don't want to be that girl that walks around spouting Bible verses and, people ask you how you're doing. You're like, oh, I'm so blessed. I'm just so blessed. God is just so good. I am so blessed. I didn't want to be that weirdo. Because those people were weird to me. I just wanted to be normal, and I just wanted to fit in, and I didn't know how having this calling and being normal was going to work, because I just told God, I was like, I just want to be normal. I just want to be normal. And so as the years went on and I got into high school, people knew me as the churchy girl. I went to church anytime the doors were open because I truly enjoyed it. I enjoyed being around those people and good morning, Alyssa. And I enjoyed it, but I wanted to be normal too. So that side of me that wanted to fit in with everyone else, it's like I was forcing it too hard because I fit in with everyone, but at the same time I fit in with no one. And the best thing I did for myself was got plugged in at a church camp, and I worked at a church camp in Capitan, New Mexico forever. It's called Lone Tree Bible Ranch, and I worked there. We did high adventure stuff, and it was just awesome to be around kids that felt that calling on their life too, and to just get to be around campers because it was just fun. But go through college, get through my freshman year of college, meet my husband. It's just a long story, but met my husband, and knew from the moment that I met him that that was the person that God had picked for me. We both knew that. And if you'd ask us separately, I told my friends, I was like, I really think that this is going to be the one. And he had actually told his mom that next day. He was like, I've met the girl I'm going to marry. Like, I met her. And it was just so weird. And things have not been easy since. But when I met him, he was into pro rodeo and the big rodeo scene and going out and doing all of that. And so wanting to be normal, I wanted to fit in with that. And I wanted to go and be a part of that and just kind of lay this calling down, because I'm like, that clearly that's not what's going to happen, and that's not going to be my life. And so I kind of just let it go for a while. But then after, right before we got married, I told my mom, I was like, I just feel like there's some kind of pressure on me to do something. At this point, I was about to start nursing school. No, I was in nursing school. I was in nursing school already. And so I thought, okay, so I don't know how this is all going to work, because I'm going to be a nurse, and that's just going to be the path of my life. So I don't know if something's going to change between here and now. But I was in that very real place of feeling like maybe God had told me wrong, and maybe I had just misheard myself, or misheard, that I'm just going to be a nurse, and it's going to be different. And got through nursing school, and I failed pharmacology. Pharmacology is freaking hard. Failed pharmacology, got set back a semester, and did really well, get to the second to last semester before I graduate, and I failed again. And there's 2 strike, you're out rule. You got to start from the very beginning. Well, I'd already invested 2 years in nursing school, and I just remember sitting in my car bawling my eyes out, because this was literally everything I had wanted to do. And I just put my head on the steering wheel. People probably thought I was crazy. And I just cried and I sobbed and I said, God, how could you have brought me this far to let me fail? How could you have brought me to this place where this is what I want, to just let me fail? And Zach said, well, what are we going to do? And I was like, I don't know. I guess I'll just get a job until I figure out what's going to happen. If I can transfer somewhere, maybe my credits will transfer to another school. So this was on Christmas break, December 2013. Yeah, December 2013. So we've been married for like 7 months. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to think about it right now, because I just want to go into the holidays and I just want to enjoy Christmas with our families. And so we go, and we're getting ready to leave. At this time, we lived in Henrietta in this tiny, cute little house. We're getting ready to leave, and I was like, something just feels weird. And we had been told a while ago that, having kids was pretty much going to be impossible. And I was like, you know what? I have an extra pregnancy test. I'm just going to take the pregnancy test, and never looked at it, because I had that mindset of it's never going to happen. I'm just doing it because I just feel like I need to do it. So I took the pregnancy test, laid it in the bathroom, and then we left to go to family Christmas. And still felt weird. Everything was weird. Got to my parents' house, and I don't know why I'm telling you all of this, but I'm telling you anyway. My mom had given us this this jar, this really pretty glass vase, and she said, I want you, every time you feel like you need to, I want you to write a praise on here and stick it in there. Or every time something is changing in your life, I want you to put it in there. She said, and then I want you at the end of the year to go back and to read these. And she then also told us that was the last Christmas that we would have in that house, because they were moving. And that was the house that we had lived in for 20 some odd years, since I was probably 6, I think. 5 or 6. And so just so many emotions. We go to Christmas with Zach's family, and we just had a good time. Well, I get home and I was like, Zach, something is still off. Like, I'm smelling things and I just don't feel well. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go into the bathroom and I am going to check that pregnancy test. I mean, it's been several days, and you all know that that's not accurate. But there was it was one of the digital ones, and it said pregnant 3+ weeks. And I just sat there, just stunned. just absolutely stunned. And I just sat there and I said, Zach, and he said, what? And I just handed it to him out the door. And he was like, did you just pee on this? And I was like, no, this is days ago. And we both just kind of sat there like, how is this possible? We were told that medically it would never happen. And if it did, I would never carry to full term. And I would have a lot of complications. And we just sat there in stunned silence. And then finally, when I got the words to tell him, I was like, what if this is why nursing school didn't work out? I was never supposed to be a nurse. Like, what if this is God's way of saying, I still have a plan for you. I'm not done with you yet. And Zach, of course, was like, yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know. Because we were raised that, you know, you go to school and you get a degree, or you pick a trade and you stick with it, and that's what you do for the rest of your life. So not passing nursing school, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. But what my husband does for work is he travels a lot. He does pipeline welding, and so he travels a lot. And so I knew before I'd even failed that we were going to struggle because of the way that he traveled so much. And with a nursing schedule, I mean, there would have been a way to do it, but it's not the way that I would have wanted. And when we got married, I said, I don't want to live a life where we're never together, where we do things so separately and life is so separate. And I was like, and when I failed in nursing school, I was like, okay, well, maybe that's my answer. Maybe, you know, God knew that we weren't strong enough to make it that way. And so he's providing a way out, which really sucked and cost a lot of money. But so then we go through my pregnancy with Reese. I worked at the pharmacy there in Henrietta, and everything was good. I had a few complications along the way, but everything pretty much for the most part was good. You got the hiccups? So, good morning. So we get through that. We moved to Haslett, and we have Reese. And we had decided before we moved, when I quit my job in Henrietta, that I was going to stay home. And here I was, just wondering how someone that has such a passion for work and just loves to be with people is just going to stay home and be that stay-at-home mom weirdo. Because, you know, you go into it and you don't know what it's going to take. You have no idea. And 2 weeks after Reese was born, after a crazy pregnancy, Zach had to go back to work. He had to leave. And so I was home by myself with this baby, and it was just that hard point in my life where I was like, God, why have you brought me here? Why is this my life? Not that I wasn't blessed to have her, but I didn't understand. Going back to that 13-year-old calling, I didn't understand. I had no idea. And so I suffered in silence for a long time, put a smile on when people would come around, but I was so depressed. And having been through the mother-baby round in nursing school, I knew what to expect. I knew that I was going through nursing school, or through depression. I knew that. And so I, without telling anyone, I don't think my sisters even knew about this until I got pregnant with Emery, but I took myself to the doctor, and I told my doctor, I was like, something's wrong. I know I probably have postpartum depression. I was like, there are days when I don't want to nurse Emery or feed Reese. I don't care if she cries. Like, she'll lay there for hours, and like, I was just at that point where I just didn't care. And so I got on some antidepressants. I also got on some anxiety medication, and started to feel better. And then was introduced to the home workouts. And as I talk about my anxiety, you have to understand, like yesterday at the grocery store, it was so bad. I was having tunnel vision, like I was going to black out. I was wearing Emery on me, and I was sweating profusely. And then like my hearing, it was like tunnel vision hearing. It was so bad. I thought I was going to pass out. And so it was the same for me when after I had Reese, and I wanted to lose the weight. I had almost 70 pounds to lose, but I couldn't bring myself to go to the gym. And I felt awful. Like, you know, just so many emotions going on as a new mom, but also just stuck in this awful depression and hating the way I look and just knowing if I could just lose some weight, I would feel better. I feel better about myself. I would, you know, maybe not be in this constant state of just blah, Like, you know, having a kid is hard, but then throw on top hormones and how you feel about yourself. Like, it's a lot. It's heavy. And so a friend from high school said, you know, I know you just had a baby, but I think maybe this would work for you. And I'm like, I don't care what it is. Give it to me. Let's do it. So I ordered it, and I told Zach that I was going to order it. And he was like, don't do it because it's going to sit there and it's going to waste and it's going to get dust on it. And I was like, I'm going to show him. I'm going to do it. Best decision I ever made for myself. Because not only did I struggle with it at first, because for any of you that have seen the 21-day fix containers, the portion control containers, the idea of eating such little food blew my mind. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. I'm not starving myself to do this. So I just started doing the workouts. And just the movement alone made such a difference. I cried through the first week of workouts, 1, because I was sore, 2, because I was way out of shape, and 3, because Autumn Calabrese just handed my butt to me. Like, it was hard. But there's also that mental, you know, kind of breakthrough moment where if you've been told for so long, or told yourself for so long you can't do something, and then you do it, and it's just like this weight lifted off of you, because you're like, I'm stronger than what I've told myself, and I'm so much more than what I'm allowing myself to believe. It was just that breakthrough moment for me. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna try the meal plan. I'm gonna do it. And I started to record videos of myself talking about this, because I wanted to remind myself in the future, when I had another baby, or share it with my friends that were also, you know, kind of going through the same thing, how to do it. And so I got more comfortable doing it, and I started to see results. I started to lose weight, but more than that, I started to feel like myself again. And as a mom, you kind of lose your identity a little bit, being someone's mom and being someone, like, it's hard to explain, but if you are a stay-at-home mom, especially, it's hard to understand that you can have more than just being all about your kids. And I love my children, I do, but mama needs something for herself. I went from being a very independent, working a lot of hours a week, loving my job, loving being in the corporate world, to being a stay-at-home mom, to literally all I do is change Mickey Mouse diapers. And then I was going to school online too. So, like, I never left my house. Having the bad social anxiety that I do, leaving my house with an infant, not happening. Like, I don't think that we went anywhere until I was like 6 months postpartum, because I was just way too anxious to go by myself. So having a platform to share that, and to just be able to tell other women, because I'd started this like little group for moms, and I'm like, guys, this is like the best thing I've ever done for myself. And it wasn't about selling anything, it was about sharing how incredible I was feeling, like the weight that was lifted off me. And I started to feel like myself again, to where I could get up and I could have my coffee in the morning, and I could do my devotionals, and I was just having that awesome time of prayer. And I just felt like me and God were like this. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I'm at this awesome point in life. So good. And I just felt like I'd finally stepped into that calling. And everything was going awesome. I was, excelling in this new business as a coach. And I was like, I'm running my own home business, and I'm going to school and finishing my degree. And I feel like I have it all together. And I felt like, coaching was that medium that I could share that ministry that I had been felt called to lead. So I started the Women in Christ page, which I run. And I had such big dreams and aspirations for that. And it's been awesome. There's over 2,500 women in there. And it's just so cool to connect with people that I've never met. And so as I was learning about coaching and how I could help people through social media, I was also, running this group, and everything was so awesome, and life was just good. And then we got pregnant last March. We got pregnant last March, and I was like, oh, we wanted another baby. We'd been talking about it. I felt like, I was at that point in my life where I had a control on my depression and my anxiety, and I graduated from college, and life was good. And then my biggest fear came to life. My body just could not, for some reason, I don't know Good morning, ladies. I don't know what happened. We still don't know what happened. It was just a spontaneous miscarriage. I got to almost 10 weeks, but it wasn't the baby wasn't progressing past like 6. And then it looked like there were twins in there. Like there were so many weird things. So once I had miscarried, my body wasn't fully getting rid of everything. So I had to go in and I had to have emergency surgery. Good morning. Good morning. Look at that face. She's so happy. My body wasn't fully getting rid of everything. And so, bless you. I had to go in and have emergency surgery because infection and all kinds of weird risks that you can have with miscarriage. Had that, and coming out of that, I was back in that dark place. It's almost like I was having postpartum depression, but I didn't have a baby to like, that almost makes it worse. And I was going back through that again. And I was like, God, why am I here again? I was doing so good. Life was so good. Things were good. And my thing, and I don't know why I do this, but when I am going through something, my trick is to smile and pretend like everything's good, and I'll tell, people ask me how I'm doing. I'm like, oh, life is good. Things are great. But on the inside, I'm like really dying. And all of these emotions are like trying to bubble to the surface, and I just can't deal with them. And so I repress them and repress them and repress them. And then it just comes out, and you just have that really ugly, ugly, ugly moment. And a lot of times my poor husband is the brunt of that. But, I just was like, I just felt like I was so desperate for someone to say, it's hard, but it's going to be better. And no one did, because no one knew what I was going through. I pretended and put on a front like everything was so awesome and life was so good. But on the inside, I was struggling. I was on that struggle bus, huh? I was on a struggle bus. So then going through half of the year, and business had slowed down because I had kind of withdrawn a little bit. Hold on, let me grab a passy. Oh, goodness. You need a passy? Okay. Sorry, this is going to be like an hour-long video, and I hope that if you're here, you're hanging with me. I promise there's a point. So, I just, business had slowed down because I had taken a hot moment to kind of deal with my own stuff, and kind of pulled away from my ministry stuff a little bit, just because I didn't feel like I was qualified to minister to anyone or to talk to anyone. But the thing I've learned is that ministry is not having it all together. It's not knowing every verse in the Bible that's perfect. It's not any of those things. It is living the life that God has called you to live honestly and sharing that with people. And that is ministry. When you are going through something and you're able to look at that situation and say, you know what, this is really, really awful. Life sucks right now and it's hard, but my God is still good, and His will is good, and His want for my life is good, and He's not going to leave me here. We're here for a moment, but it's going to be good. So going through all of that, and Zach and I were struggling with some things because I'm not the communication queen that I need to be. We were struggling, and we'd finally started to get to a good place where I was starting to be more open. I had been going to counseling, trying to get rid of some of this just grief, because if you've ever been in that situation of losing a child in any way, it's like buying a car almost. You see what other people have, and you think, why can't I have that? Or like when you buy a car and you looked at that car and then you get told you don't have the finances for it, or now's not a good time. That's all you see. And so I was just seeing all of these pregnant women. I'm like, I would be this far along. I would be this far along. And so in August, on my birthday, I found out I was pregnant with Emery. And y'all are going to laugh at this, but the way that I find out I'm pregnant every time, the last 3 times, was I could smell dog urine. And it's like so distinct. It makes me vomit. Like, it's just bad. so I woke up that morning and Zach was like, happy birthday, you know, whatever. And I was like, oh my God, I'm pregnant again. And he was like, what? And I was like, the dog has peed in this room somewhere. And he was like, how do you know that? I was like, I'm pregnant. I know it. Well, I wasn't like terribly far along at all. And so we waited. And on Reese's birthday, I tested again and it came out to be positive. And so I was excited, but I was really scared. Because one thing that had happened after my miscarriage was, you know, I wanted to tell people soon because I didn't have any complications with Reese, and so I wanted to tell everyone. I wanted to tell our family, and Zach's more cautious than I am, so he's like, no, I don't want to, I don't want to tell people. And then when I miscarried, I kind of felt like, well, that's what you get for being excited. That's what you get. And I told myself that over and over, that's what you get. That's what you get. So with Emery, I started showing really early, and I think maybe it was just like swelling or something, but I started showing really early, and so I was planning a surprise party for Zach's 30th birthday. I was like, we've got to tell people because they're going to know. And so for his birthday, we went out and we had dinner with his family and my family, and we told them. And I had made Reese a Big Sister shirt, and I was like, you know what? We're going to trust that regardless whether this ends in miscarriage or not, that this is still our child. And I'm going to stop being afraid to tell people that, you know, this is our baby, because the baby I lost was still my baby. And so we made the decision to share that Reese was going to be a big sister, and our family was so excited. And it was like after that night, things went downhill drastically. I got very, very sick in my pregnancy with Emery, like so sick I couldn't lift my head off the pillow. I couldn't take care of Reese by myself. And I tell my mom and my dad all the time, it's a godsend that my dad has been home for the last year, because I would have never made it through my pregnancy without him. Anytime I needed something, he was there, and he would come and get Reese and just take her. And my mother-in-law, when she was off working, she would come get her. So much of being where we were at that time was perfect, because I needed all the help I could get. So I get through morning sickness at 20 weeks, and then we start having complications with blood. Emery was growing great. She was huge. But then we start having blood complications, like clotting complications and all of this weird stuff. So I'm having to have all of this blood work done, and our insurance. I lost insurance in December because I turned 26, and so I had to get on different insurance, and insurance didn't cover anything, and it was just one thing after another, and I just felt so tired. And I was doing this mostly alone because Zach was working, trying to keep us stayed up with bills and all of this stuff, and I just felt tired. My soul was just desperate for some relief. Get towards the end of my pregnancy, and we get insurance, and so things are going to be great, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be the uphill climb, you know, things are going to be awesome. Then start feeling this debilitating pain in my hips and back, because of where Emery was sitting, not on my nerves, but I have weird back issues, and my hips kept sliding out of socket. And so I was having to go to the chiropractor almost 4 times a week just to be able to function and to walk. So I'm doing all of this, and I'm trying to put a smile on, and I'm trying to, you know, work and run 2 businesses, and being just tired. And I just got to that point where I felt like I was going through the motions, and I was doing all the things that, you know, a good, you know, God-fearing girl does, and she's praying, and she's doing her devotional every day, and she's put it out there, and she's trying to encourage other people, but she's just feeling so desperate and so alone. And we get to the week of Emery's birth, and my great-grandfather passes away, and it was just a lot, just so much, and my heart was just so heavy. So Emery gets here, and she was beautiful and wonderful, and I knew that I wasn't going to struggle with postpartum depression with her, because immediately when she was born, I just felt that strong connection that I didn't have with Reese. Nursing was easy. Life with baby number 2 was super easy. And I went into it and I felt like a warrior. You know, I was out the first week after she was born doing things, and I just felt good. And I was like, my anxiety is not going to bother me. We're going to be awesome. And I just felt good. I felt good, and I'm like, okay, we're on the upswing. And then 2 weeks after she was born, Zach left on his job for North Dakota. North Dakota is not Oklahoma. It is not 2 hours. It is a 20-hour drive with 2 kids. It was, I think, almost a 30-hour drive. We had to split it up. I just felt completely crushed. And there's one woman that I've been talking to from Decatur. Her name is Renee. Her husband is overseas, and she has 3 little ones under the age of 5, I believe. And for some reason, just at the right time, she reached out to me, or I reached out to her, not really sure how it happened. And I just started talking to her, and she was like, yeah, you know, my last child was born. I was by myself. I think my husband watched the delivery via Skype, and it just stopped me in my tracks. And I'm like, what am I complaining about? But even when you see someone's situation that is harder than yours and different than yours, that doesn't mask the pain of your own situation. And you should never, just because someone's doing it differently or going through something differently, you should never feel the need to squelch the feelings that you're feeling, to feel ashamed because you're struggling. You shouldn't. And she told me that. She's like, it's different. It's different. It's not the same. And I was like, man, I have nothing to complain about. And there's a girl on our big team whose son has, you know, all of these medical issues, and she loves him so fiercely. And I'm like, if she could do it, why can't I? You know, but you can't compare your stories. Your stories are different. The way you handle things are different. The way that God hands you things are different. Because we're created differently for a reason. And so I felt just overwhelmed, and I was trying to keep that mask on, that life is good and I can do this mom thing by myself, but inside I was building up so much bitterness and so much resentment. Even though when Zach got that call, we both knew that this was the next step that we needed to take. We needed to step out in faith and trust that moving 20 hours away and 2,300 miles away from everything that we know is what we were called to do. I didn't realize that it was going to take almost 11 weeks to get there, though. I had no idea. So I'm going to doctor's appointments by myself, and I'm doing all of these things by myself, and I'm feeling those very real abandonment issues. And he was like, I just can't talk to you on the phone right now because you're just so angry. And I was like, I know I'm angry and I'm sorry, and I don't know why I'm angry because I'm the one that told you to go. And I know that this is what we're supposed to be doing, but I just feel right now that this is not good, that this is just not good. And so I go to her follow-up appointment, and Reese, first or second week no, she was 3 weeks old, and we found a lump on her chest, and I mentioned it to her pediatrician, and we had an ultrasound done, and they said, well, good thing is it's not in her bone, so it's not, what is that cancer called? You know what I'm talking about. It's not any kind of bone cancer, so that's good. It may be this, but it could also be this, this, and this. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. You know, you can't give me a straight answer. And so, because we didn't have insurance on her yet, and the insurance we did have, no one would take, the pediatrician was like, well, basically, I can't do anything for you. You have to figure out a way to get her an MRI, but I can't do it. I can't refer you because we don't take your insurance. And I was like, you just told me that my newborn could possibly have some form of cancer, yet now you can't help me. Can you imagine the kind of rare, hot, white anger I was experiencing because I was so angry. I was angry that I had this perfect baby after a really hard pregnancy, and now something might be wrong with her that might take her from me. All of this just straight up fear and stress and desolate. I just felt desolate. I was like, I have nothing else to give. My cup is so empty, it's going to crack. I have no encouragement to give. I have nothing. And one of my sweet, sweet friends told me, you know what you do with coaching is you share your story on social media so publicly, and people love you for that, and they follow you because they love your honesty. Maybe start sharing things about this and start sharing your journey and kind of making it like a journal, so people know what's going on and they can be in the loop, and it's just therapy for you. And I was like, that's a good idea. So I started sharing bit by bit, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm not one of those people that likes to share glitter and rainbows, because it's not always glitter and rainbows. It's not. And people that do that are fake, and nobody needs more fake people in their life. Like, let's just be real here for a second. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do this in the most authentic and real way that I can. I'm going to share everything. And you that follow me know I share everything. And I'm going to start crying listening to this song. So, we get up here to North Dakota, and life has been so awesome so far this week. I don't know why it was, but at home I just felt, well, let me backtrack. So we get Emery's MRI thanks to some sweet people pulling strings left and right to make it happen. We get insurance for her. All of these things happen, and I'm like, okay, we're on the upswing. We finally get a date. Good morning, Reese. Hi, sis. We finally get a date to move, and we get up here, and it's like the weather changing. I told y'all, it smells like this is my place. It smells wet cedar, cold weather, a little bit of rain, some coffee. Like, I just feel like I'm in my element, and life has been so much less stressful. And I feel like I'm coming back to that place where that rainy season, but it's like a good rain. And this morning I was listening to that message, and the olives and the olive tree in the Garden of Gethsemane, and I was like, yes, I get that. And then in the part at the very end in Mark 14, 36, Father, he cried out, everything is possible for you. Please take this cup of suffering away from me. I felt like I had cried out, God, take this from me. You can. Why aren't you? Why am I going through this? Why am I experiencing this? Why me? You know, I do what I'm supposed to be doing. I love you, and I share about you, and so much people hate me. Like, why? And then at the very end, yet I want your will to be done, not mine. And this morning when she was speaking over that, I was like, oh, whew. Not your will, or not my will, but yours. I feel like there is purpose for everything. His will is good. His plan is good. He knows things that I don't know. And I've gone through all of these things in the past 4 years, and that was a really long way to tell you, and I'm sorry. But in case anybody needed to know. His plan is good. His will is good. We have to go through hard things, because in order to get to the good things, you have to go through the hard things so you can say, yes, this is good. Yes, this is hard, but it is good. There is a plan. You have to experience the highs and lows, because you have to be reminded of that constantly. We are humans, and a lot of times when we feel like something is good, we tend to forget all of the hard things that we had to go through. So we have to be reminded why he is good, what he has brought us from, and that this struggle that you're in right now, it's not going to be forever. It's going to keep coming back, and you're going to keep seeing his blessings. And you know, it just so much. Anyway, she's talking about this diving story. You know, her and her family were getting scuba certified. It was a funny story. I'll share the video in the comments of this live video, and you can watch it yourself, and hopefully, you know, get some goodness from it too. But she was saying that at the end, when they were in the ocean doing their swim, that a big fish had ran into her daughter, and her daughter jumped on top of her. Then all of these other people started jumping onto her. Well, because she is bountiful in the booty area, she had to wear a weight belt, and she was like, nope, I'm out of here. So she took the weight belt off, and they swam up to the surface, and the instructor sat them down on the boat, and he was very upset with them, and he said, your job is to keep your eye on the master. And when you take your eyes from the master, then you get lost. Then things happen that shouldn't happen, or things happen and you don't know why, but it's because you took your eyes off the master. If you would watch me, you would know, and I would walk you through these things. And it was like, if I will dare to keep my eyes on the master in my times of struggle and choose to say, not my will but yours, and place that trust and hope in your love, because he is good and he knows things that I do not. And that was it right there, because he is good and he knows things that I do not. Everything that we walk through in life, because he is good and he knows things that I do not. Things that I see as a struggle, things that I have a hard time with, are maybe preventing something worse from happening, or I don't even know. There's so many instances where I feel like people could fight me on that, and I welcome that, because it's something I struggle with too. Why do people have to do this? Why do good people go through bad things? I don't know. His will is good. His plan is good. Our job is to keep our eyes on him and to say yes. I will follow you blindly, because I know that this life is just a minute. It's just a hot second in the whole scheme of eternity. So anyway, I had to share that this morning. I know that was long and drawn out, and I apologize. But I just want to ask you if you remember, why you're here and how you got here, and what it was like when you first said yes. And to let God be the leader of your life. What was that like when you first said yes? That feeling that you had, and remembering back, and y'all, I can remember back vividly. It's not something you forget, but maybe it's something you kind of lost direction on, and maybe it's something, and she said, maybe you just need to rededicate your life to saying yes to God, and to following him and trusting that his plan is good. She said, because I bet we could pass the mic around tonight, and you could share all of the hard things that you've gone through, and the ways that you've taken your eyes off God in the midst of that, trying to deal with it on your own. And I have the anxiety, the depression, the struggling with, being a mom and marriage and balancing all of those things. I bet you could remember that. And I bet you could go and pinpoint the feelings that you felt in the times that you just felt desperate. And I was like, yeah, I can. I was talking to the screen this morning because, 6:30, I'm already crying. Like, it was good. So the prayer that she said, God, I turn it over to you. I've been doing all the right stuff, but my heart still feels so distant from you. Your love is free, and I want to take it. No matter what we do, going back to Adam and Eve and, blatant just disregard for what God said, he still clothed them. He protected them from living a life knowing everything and being stuck in sin. He protects us from things that we don't understand. His son, who died on a cross, who could have said at any time, take me from this, and had angels come and rescue him. He turned his face and he allowed him to die for our sin. And it's just such a, like, when you hear it, it's just like, what? But then when you feel that, it's just like, what? So I had to share that this morning. I know that was probably stupid long, and I apologize, but I'm going to share the video that the sermon or preaching that she did. I'm going to share that in the comments. So if you just caught it on at the end and you're like, what the heck is she talking about? Watch it. It's like 55 minutes long. Take the time, sit down in quiet and watch it, and just kind of let it wash over you and apply it the way that you can. But thanks for being on this morning. Thanks for sharing some love. I'm going to go back and read the comments in a minute because my phone's about to die. But I hope you guys take something from that, and I hope that it speaks to you in whatever place you're in life, and that you get some kind of encouragement. But don't just get encouragement. Share it with someone else. Pass it on. Sharing is caring, and I'm going to keep saying that. I'm probably going to make a hashtag shirt or something and just start giving it out to people. Sharing is caring. Sharing is caring. If we are not sharing what we are walking through, then what's the point? And I honestly believe that. I believe that with all of my being. If you are not sharing life and life authentically, then what is the point of going through all of the things that we go through here on earth? So I love you guys. I hope that you have a great Saturday morning. It's time to make some pancakes. Bye, y'all.